There's been something that has been a massive talking point recently about the US dollar dominance and what's happening globally to the US kind of power and economic power and stuff. And it obviously doesn't help that there's been tons of news on the BRICS countries and what they're doing and settling trade in different currencies. And if you just look at YouTube, you'll see tons of thumbnails with fire and talking about China and the dollar. And if you really dig into it, maybe it's not something that's super crazy to think about, but it is something that maybe there's a shift coming. I don't think that this happens overnight or tomorrow or next month, but it's going to be a slow chip away at that. And the BRICS countries are pretty powerful when you look at their kind of different scales, where the population of the BRICS countries is insane. The GDP is about to pass or has already passed like G7. So there's a reason to look at that and say, there might be a power shift here. And I think the BRICS countries are doing a summit, and in there's been 19 new countries that are requesting to join them and challenge the US dollar's global dominance, which obviously is, again, keeping this in the spotlight, keeping everyone talking about it and saying, what's going on? What's going to happen? Is the dollar actually getting challenged here? Which, I don't know, is kind of a hard thing to kind of do, because when you look at everything, it's like 60% of the global trade's done in dollars, and the foreign exchange that countries hold, the vast majority are dollars, and it's not really going anywhere to like towards yen or yuan. It's just not trending in that direction like heavily. Maybe over like the next decade there might be an increase from like 2% of Chinese yuan to like 5% or maybe 10% at the max, but I don't see a huge shift coming like that, at least not anytime really soon. And we can see obviously their national summits. The BRICS have 19 nations that are requesting to become members, which I'm more interested in. What are those 19 countries? Because I'm going to assume that they're probably not very big countries or economically powerful ones. So I want to see the list of what these countries are before you really take any like account of this, because 19, it sounds like a lot, but it could be small countries that don't really, have an economic power on the global stage, which is nothing wrong with that. They're probably just smaller countries. But ultimately, like when you compare BRICS to G7, it's not really going to matter. And you can see here, earlier this year, the BRICS collective made it known they were open to new members. Additionally, as the bloc of countries has surpassed G7 nations in GDP, seems the expansion could continue to implement a shift in global power balance, specifically amid their continued efforts to replace the US dollar in international trade. So again, we do see the trade numbers they're being done in dollars, it's like 60% dollars or close to 60, and then it's like 30% the euro and stuff, and then it gets fractionalized from there. So I don't think this is going to happen like tomorrow, next month, next year, even in like the next decade. Maybe this starts to play out, but it doesn't seem like it's something that can happen right away, mainly because the BRICS countries don't really get along. It'd be one thing if the BRICS countries actually got along and were friendly and were like all about each other and actually working together, then they probably could become unstoppable. But they don't really like each other. They're not big fans. And you can see some of the problems showing here, even as they discuss expanding BRICS. This right here says last year, China initiated a discussion regarding potential expansion. Conversely, there was concern amongst the BRICS nations about their influence being diluted. The report states specifically there is a concern over Beijing's close allies being included, mostly due to China's GDP already being twice the size of the 4 other BRICS countries combined. So even just reading that, there's not a lot of trust there. These aren't countries that are getting together, working together, and love working together. They're kind of really out for themselves. They don't get along in the best ways, and this shows when they're talking about expansion, saying, well, China's going to get too powerful in this group. So maybe it's a valid concern, but it's also, these guys knowing that China is the biggest one in here, they might be able to just kind of make the rules and do what they want. And then all of a sudden it's not BRICS, it's China, which, the GDP that China has, obviously, like this says, twice the size of all 4 of the other countries combined. So they got some weight to throw around. But these guys aren't lovey-dovey on the same page and enjoying each other's company and actually looking forward to working together. So, the fact that they could take over the world and destroy the dollar and everything goes to the yuan and China runs everything, I just don't think we're there at this point because BRICS aren't this well kept group. They're not really supportive and really enjoy each other. It's kind of the exact opposite. So if they figure that out and become super friendly and all of a sudden they flip the switch, maybe then it happens a lot faster. But I still just don't think the way this is in, the amount of trade that's done in dollars, the amount of foreign reserves held in dollars, the amount of debt done in dollars, like dollars are all over the place. They're needed all over the place. You can even see there's been a thing with Argentina going on that's been a big problem where they're running out of dollars, literally. So you can see reports emerging. Argentina's central bank has run out of US dollars and started using customer deposits of USD. Their inflation's running at over 100%, suspended operations Monday. So, it's kind of crazy to see that. Like, a central bank runs out of dollars, so they're taking their citizens' dollars in their bank accounts and taking those because they've run out. So, the dollar is still needed everywhere and it's not really going anywhere and anytime soon. I don't think this is happening soon. Maybe it's completely wrong and maybe this takes off and BRICS take over the world and everyone's using yuan. I mean, I don't see that happening, but who knows? So at the end of the day, probably nothing short-term going to happen from this. Could there be long-term effects of this actually being a shift in power? Yeah, it could be. But it's going to be interesting to see it play out. But it's not something that you can kind of see that's going to happen next month. It's probably going to take a long time, especially because the BRICS countries aren't the biggest fans of each other. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video.